The map that we're playing on is Neoplanet.
Get my overlay to switch.
In the bottom left, our blue Protoss, eNtitY.
In the top right, our red Protoss, the one, the only, PalaDiN.
You know, I just noticed that the decal that PalaDiN has chosen kind of looks like a guitar pick.
It does.
That has nothing to do with anything.
Nope.
But it is something that I had noticed.
What is there to talk about right now? It's just pylon.
There's plenty to talk about. We could give names and backstories to every one of these probes.
What do you think these are? It looks like little lion circles?
Oh yeah, look at that. Harnessing the power of Aslan.
He's got, I'm not sure what that symbol means, but it means that he's going to be chrono boosting some probes as we start out into this game. PalaDiN coming out, both putting down, well, it looks like PalaDin's putting down a gateway. eNtitY has not a gateway down yet.
There it goes.
Coming down. Shockingly late. Usually their gateways are like identically timed with each other.
Yeah. It's almost a 10-second difference.
PalaDiN, once again, he has been the, what's the word, studious Protoss, always checking his sides. I am guessing these guys know each other very well and play sometimes. They said they actually avoid playing each other except for tournaments, but he always checks those things, so you would think that maybe eNtitY does some proxy things at some points.
He's clearly looking for something.
Gateway finishes up for PalaDiN as well as his pylon. Cybercore goes down. Looks like eNtity's probe tried to block that a little bit, but didn't really do it. eNtity's Cybercore going to go down also. One gas for eNtitY so far, one gas for PalaDiN. Pretty much identical builds. Second gas going down now for PalaDiN. Second gas going down now for eNtitY.
PalaDin's probe, once again taking a long way around, is now entering into eNtitY. Well, would be entering into eNtity's base if he hadn't just hung out at the bottom of the ramp there.
Just checking out the scenery of the rocks.
Mm-hmm. Satisfied with the inspection of the rocks, moving in. Now inspecting the assimilator.
Had to take a leak by the rocks.
And satisfied with the coding of the assimilator.
Zealot decides to chase the probe out, also taking a nice walk over the rocks. Probe of eNtitY walking down the middle. Not sure where exactly he's going. Likely going to put down a proxy pylon somewhere.
Mothership core coming out for PalaDiN.
Now the Zealot that was chasing the probe out is now chasing the probe back in. Stalker comes out, so it's going to put an end to that. PalaDiN parking a probe here as he does almost every game.
Robotics facility from eNtitY, and he chrono boosting out that warp gate.
Another gateway going down, so it's going to be a 2 or 3 gate robo. Interesting play. If he's going to get the observer first or go for the immortal. So a Planet S inscription on the map here. Thanks for those of us hanging out with us today. We're in Game 2 of the Grand Final. We already did a Grand Final between these two. eNtitY already was coming out of the winner's bracket, and PalaDiN was able to knock him down, so this is the Grand Final, at which these players are both even, having 1 loss each in this tournament.
3 stalkers moved down for PalaDiN, picking up that probe.
That probe got picked off.
Quite quickly.
Robo going down for PalaDiN as well. I've seen quite a bit of passivity out of these guys in the last couple games. They're definitely hanging back, not wanting to really overextend themselves too much as eNtitY puts down a Nexus.
Not wanting to risk the APM, I imagine. Don't want to misclick and then lose a few armies in the or a few units in the early game. But now we see a push coming down from PalaDiN, or rather a reposition so that he can take his natural.
mothership cores in a good spot.
eNtitY takes his natural as well.
Could actually scout around with his mothership core, but you'd probably see this pylon here. Doesn't look like eNtity's really going to be all that interested in doing a whole lot with it. He's just kind of hanging around home. Both players being fairly passive. As I'm sure exhaustion's setting in as much for them as it is for us, so they're just kind of wanting to sit
if
around.
Not more so for them than it is for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't actually had to play.
That's right.
A total of 5 games played in the first round. Looks like it's going to be another long series here. PalaDiN putting a proxy pylon in down at the bottom. Going to come up and check the third, see if anything's there. Nothing is there. Food exactly even right now at 50 and 50. PalaDiN just slipping to 52.
eNtitY decides to put down a Stargate. Any predictions this time as to what he's going to make
I
out of that?
have no idea. I'll go ahead and put my money on Oracle.
All right, that seems to be a fairly safe bet. He tends to do that more often than not, occasionally doing the Phoenix first.
It's like he chooses to put down only one gas as natural. eNtitY moving around, looks like he picked off that observer. Opening a couple zealots, rallying his probes into the gas. Guys, is that his natural? Gonna start mining that gas. Big income there. Pretty even. That's all we have to say. Graphs.
Void Ray this time.
Void Ray. I should just stop guessing.
We were both wrong on that one.
If there's anything that we could say about these guys is that they're fairly unpredictable. Both could be doing the inverse of each other at any given point. PalaDiN going with a super strong air army last game. That could very well be eNtitY this game.
Unit compositions for the two players look fairly similar, varying numbers of various units.
The observer of PalaDiN swinging into eNtity's base, seeing everything that he's got, including that Stargate is there to see when the Void Ray pops out. Even if it hadn't popped out, you could still see the image of it inside the Stargate.
PalaDiN's own Stargate is now finishing up. And he too is getting Void Rays out of that, chronoing it.
PalaDiN is actually putting down an additional Stargate, so he's going to have 2.
Trying to get a leg up on that Void Ray count.
Put his Stargate in odd position right down there at the natural in front.
eNtitY does see that forward pylon by PalaDiN in the bottom.
Let's be dispatching a single zealot to go down and deal with that.
Handle it.
Although, when you do send out a single zealot, PalaDiN could easily just warp in 2 stalkers, kill the zealot, and come back home. But he'll always know that that is still there. It's like a hallucinated Phoenix coming in to check out what's up. You're going to see everything and meet a timely death. Still has a proxy pylon there. This zealot whacking away at that pylon. Looks like PalaDiN doesn't really care.
Second Stargate going down for eNtitY.
Now PalaDiN hallucinating a couple Phoenixes of his own to see what eNtity's doing as eNtitY moves some of his army up to the third base to establish that. These guys don't know how to play a short game, do they?
Well, if they do, they are choosing not to tonight.
Those hallucinated Phoenix, or at least one of them gets taken out. The second one is coming into eNtity's main. As you can see, lots of gateways, a robo, Stargate, 2 Stargates, so they're doing fairly similar builds here. PalaDiN is getting +1 air, which is about to wrap up, as well as the Forge. eNtity deciding to get +1 air as well, so it looks like it's going to be fairly similar compositions to the last game.
eNtity choosing to swell his zealot count a little bit. He does have charge done.
PalaDin's starting to think about moving out a little bit. Hallucinated Phoenix coming from eNtity to see where PalaDiN is at.
eNtity adding High Templar into his composition and researching Psionic Storm, admitting that he took a lot of damage from that in the last game.
Is definitely something that he's going to admit. I gotta say, one of my favorite plays between these two guys is on the same map a few games ago when PalaDiN was moving in with 5 hallucinated Archons and eNtitY sensed it, hallucinated a bunch of units of his own. That was definitely a cool move. Looks like PalaDiN has a spidey sense that eNtity's moving around. Both are kind of positioning around here. He's gonna come up and kill that pylon of eNtitY, so eNtity's gonna know where those 2 Voiders are at least.
Taking his own third now.
Taking it in a different position though. PalaDiN now moving down to the south side of the map, thinking that maybe eNtitY may be taking a base or taking a third in the same position he is. He's gonna not find a whole lot. Although the Oracle is on the field now, that Oracle's gonna poke around and see if eNtitY has any defense against it. He has 3 cannons in the front, but that's not going to help against the Oracle in the back. eNtity's going to have to move those Voiders around to do something about that. But as PalaDiN's moving his army, he's more concerned about that. PalaDiN distracting has clearly the attention of eNtitY as that Oracle comes in and stops the mining there. Now PalaDiN's going to make an issue of it and push into the front. Nice storm being done on those stalkers.
Kind of stuttering in there. The Void Rays coming forward and doing a lot of damage. Another storm going down on top of the Voids.
The storms on those Void Rays just seems to be a pretty impressive way to counter those. Looks like PalaDiN's Air Force is going to be much more significant than eNtity's, but eNtity's Immortals are doing a lot of damage. Photon Overcharge goes down and is hitting those Void Rays.
And we see the food counts thing very, very similar. It looks like eNtitY is going to be emerging as the victor, and he's going to try and chase down those stalkers.
Now the question is, what do these two guys go into? Looks like eNtity's choosing to transition into some blink, while the production of PalaDiN stays largely the same with Void Rays and Air Armor. He's also chrono boosting out those Void Rays. eNtity choosing to do the same, also make 2 Void Rays of his own, putting down blink like we said. PalaDiN transferring a bunch of probes to his third base. Still has that Oracle hanging out over the top left side of the map.
Also had a Void Ray. Looks like that was not meant to be there. He's going to rejoin it with his army.
If that Void Ray would have been a little bit behind, he would have seen this probe sneaking up on the left side. Put a pylon down by PalaDiN's third. Cannon coming down after he sees that probe coming in. Doesn't want any of that. Najit saying this is going to get epic. I think you are right. This is definitely going to get epic.
Both players choosing to get ground level 1 as they currently only have... PalaDiN does have shields level 1, but armor and weapons for his air.
Air weapons are a useful type of weapon.
We do see a Dark Shrine yet again.
Warp Prism also coming out of eNtitY, so likely going to coincide with that Dark Shrine. It looks like the Oracle moving in to do more probe damage.
eNtitY is no longer happy with that, and he's going to try and cut it off with the Mothership Core.
PalaDiN has killed a total of 8 workers now, 9, 10. Looks like it's going to stop at 10. That Photon Overcharge takes that Oracle out. Warp Prism now looks like he's going to take a detour, probably open up to warping some DTs to drop.
PalaDiN's army repositioned slightly.
PalaDiN's actually going to see this Warp... Oh, it looks like Warp Prism moves out. PalaDiN's got a probe moving down to put on a base right here as eNtity's army is moving into that position.
He's going to want to try and cancel that pretty quickly, or he's going to lose it.
Cancel it!
And he does get the cancel off.
So that only ended up costing him 100 minutes as he repositions his army and spreads his stalkers and spreads his voiders. He's got everything a nice spread. He knows those
Zealot's
storms.
running into the third right now. The army of PalaDiN is following. DT is also there. Also Zealot warping in the main.
PalaDiN moving up now into the natural area of PalaDiN. PalaDiN pulled his entire
hitting 3
army
bases
back.
at the same time.
That Warp Prism moved into the main. Looks like eNtity's going to pull on out. PalaDiN does have a far superior food supply, but that is not going to stop eNtity from pushing it. Void Rays come in and clean up those Zealots. eNtity pushing back to the south.
eNtitY does have a lot of idle probes in his main.
GT's coming in trying to take out this cannon, and they do. Looks like he's going to need an observer to take those out now. It does not have one nearby. This Nexus getting low on shields. Hopefully PalaDiN has an observer to bring over here, which it doesn't look like he does. This Nexus is going to fall. Meanwhile, eNtitY pushing up towards the natural. Third Nexus of PalaDiN falls due to those Void Rays. PalaDiN needs to get some observers up there. Probe's got a nice rally line.
And pulls back home with the main of his army. Observer finally shows up to clean up that Dark Templar, and retakes his third, putting some cannons down, not wanting to be caught with his pants down yet again.
He had a cannon there, but those Dark Templar just took it out before they were able to be taken and cleaned up. PalaDiN extending his lead now at supply blocked at 180, eNtitY at 156.
Another Warp Prism coming out from eNtitY. Looks like he's going to try and do some more drop. Ground weapons level 2 is done for eNtitY as well. And shields level 2 is being researched by PalaDiN.
These games between these two are definitely very stalemate epic games. It's definitely teaching me a lot about PvP. It's actually interesting. I haven't seen much PvP on the ladder lately.
That Warp Prism is going to be spotted by that observer, and the Void Rays are moving over to intercept it.
That is quite a Void Ray army.
In the meantime, a Dark Templar is warped in on the left, but is meeting a gateway wall, taking a few whacks at that.
He's putting down a cannon behind those gateways to try and deal with that as he pulls the stalkers back as well.
Does drop that gateway, but now it is detected, and the gateway goes right back down.
PalaDiN does have air weapons level 3 and shields level 2 going down as he continues to warp in more High Templar. eNtitY doing a similar thing as he's making more Archons. Both players now approaching 200 as PalaDiN has reached that and eNtitY is at 175. That observer being pesky if eNtitY does not want that hanging around. So 4 base versus 3 base it looks at the moment. eNtity's had his 3rd base established for quite a while. PalaDiN has largely been sitting back defending the repeated attacks of eNtitY. And
it looks like their two armies are headed in opposite directions. So one of them is either going to pull back or there will be a base race scenario.
This engagement is going to be interesting. Those High Templars and Archons are going to be an interesting match for this High Templar and largely
eNtity's Mothership Core caught in the middle of the map, not doing much, but that shows eNtitY that army is there, and he's pulling back to try and defend.
PalaDiN clearly waiting until his +2 air attack finishes, which is any second now. Now it's just finished. Going head-to-head against these Archons.
Prismatic alignment on his, but there go the storms. Ooh, those are great storm placements. Food for PalaDiN dropping much quicker than that of eNtitY. Stalker's getting cleaned up by Void Rays.
That was not a very good engagement by PalaDiN, to say the least. Those Archons and Storms really wreaked havoc on those Void Rays.
And now eNtitY is taking a cue to move forward. He's also taking a 5th base in the top left.
Definitely getting a big base lead against PalaDiN.
Warping in a lot of High Templar, turning them into Archons.
I think after that last engagement, he really realized that those Archons are the way to go. Another Warp Prism coming out the bottom as well, in between his 4th base. Starting to push up those Void Rays against those gateways to take down that wall. PalaDiN responding by warping into several units there. Photon overcharge as well on that Nexus.
2 Void Rays are coming up to meet that defensive army. Photon overcharge, like you said.
Warp Prism warps in several units right underneath the observer of PalaDiN, so he's going to be totally aware of that, although he is busy dealing with this army of eNtitY at the top. Warp Prism going to move along the back, and looks like PalaDiN's going to pull back the probes, largely maybe just because of being mined out there, but there is a lot of cannons, so there's not going to be a whole lot to worry about. This Warp Prism is definitely not going to make it anywhere.
A valiant attempt, but to no avail.
eNtity's now up 172 to 112, so eNtity's definitely taking the upper hand in this game.
eNtitY feeling comfortable enough to take the gold base in the center of the map.
We have seen PalaDiN come back from some big deficits before, but
Absolutely.
the unit composition of PalaDiN is just not looking strong to hold up against this composition of eNtitY. Still continuing to put Immortals in there as he knows that as PalaDiN is continuing to make more Stalkers.
Well, PalaDiN's secret weapon in this tournament has always been the High Templar with those Psionic Storms. He does not have any of those in his composition right now. eNtitY is the one who's kind of turned the tables on that little number.
That is true. eNtitY now approaching 200. It's just a matter of time before he moves in, now taking a huge base lead at 6. PalaDiN just trying to get up his 4th. He's actually tried to get this up a few times. Looks like we got a good amount of chat going on in the chat channel. Encourage you to talk about the games with our fellow watchers. Thanks for tuning in this evening. eNtitY is going to come up and force the issue as he's getting close to 200. PalaDiN's coming to respond. Let's see what they can do. Moving those High Templar to the front to come up and storm those Void Rays and Zealots likely.
And here are the storms. Big damage going down on those Void Rays, on those Zealots. And PalaDiN's army just evaporates and GG's.
We're back to 1-1.
These two players don't like to give each other a lot of ground.
They do not.
Every little bit is hard fought.
Now as we wait for our tournament admins to get us into the next game.